Hello, I'm Paul Bosserman with the old Anvil Speed Shop, and today I want to show you the 1969 Rambler Scrambler that we built. Before we get started talking about all the modifications we made to this Rambler, I'll give you a brief history. Though American Motors produced these through the 60s, the Rambler was, they ended production in the United States in 1969. So this was the final car of the Rambler. They teamed up with Hurst and came out with the SC Rambler, which they nicknamed the Scrambler. They were all done in a red, white, and blue paint scheme. There was two different paint schemes. They had a A scheme and a B scheme. I think it was the A scheme had a red stripe down the side, and the B scheme had blue at the bottom. We actually took the two and combined them on this car. They all had a fiberglass hood scoop. There was actually 3 different hood scoops run. They did 500 in the first one, which was the smallest one. Then they did 500 of a second one, which got a little bigger because they had to make a mold from the previous one. This one is actually the 3rd generation. So they built 500 of these with the largest scoop. And we chose the largest scoop on this one because it needs a lot of air. They all had a 390 cubic inch engine and a 4-speed, and hence a Hurst shifter. That's how Hurst got involved in these cars. They had a tack. They had red, white, and blue headrests, and they were super lightweight. They were advertised as 2,999 pounds and cost $299.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
$2,999. Very unique that they were $1 per pound. Starting up front, we went with the Holley Retro Bright headlight. These are a LED headlight. They work extremely well and don't draw a lot of current. Looking at the badging here on the front, we painted it with a 402 cubic inch. Of course, all of them had 390s, and we originally would have had the 390 on it. But this is a 401 Indy block and has a 390 crank, and it was slightly overboard, so it was de-stroked and overboard. So we wound up with 402 cubic inch, and the owner really wanted to put that on the car because that is the actual cubic inch of this car. So that's one of the modifications we've made. Of course, all these cars had hood pins, which makes them pretty unique. So under the hood, of course, the engine's in its proper location. It is slightly offset to the passenger side. So like I said before, this engine's a 402 cubic inch. It has the 390 crank, 401 block. It has LS rods and a custom piston. It's running Edelbrock heads and Edelbrock manifold. The motor was built by Kenny Marciano. Kenny used to work for Roush Racing and just did an incredible job with this thing. Everything was flowed on a flow bench. He ported everything so it's all matched. And this is probably the most horsepower that we know of any AMC motor. We wound up with 657 horsepower at the crank when Westech ran it on their dyno. And since then, we have really tuned on it with the air cleaner and all the exhaust in place in the car. And we actually got 555 horsepower to the rear wheel and the dyno. It's pretty incredible. This car rips. There's no doubt. Some of the features of the motor that we did, we built this air cleaner, and this air cleaner is actually pulling air from the scoop, and it goes inside, and we have a filter inside similar to the original, but we had to hand fabricate it all because of the height differences and all we had. And also we had the opportunity where the windshield wiper motor was, because we left the windshield wipers out, to have this hole in the cowl. Well, that cowl opens into a high pressure area at the base of the windshield. So we also draw air from there as well. We custom made billet valve covers for it. This was a solid chunk of billet, and we machined it out, and the owner wanted hammer on it, because we hammer on an anvil. So he wanted to call the car the Hammer. As you can see, we have fuel rails. This is, we are running a Holley HP EFI and a race pack power distribution module for the electronics. And up front, we have our aluminum radiator, and we run a Durali fan, which is a 2-speed fan. It's pushing about 2,400 CFM. It's a 2-speed, so we control that with the ECU. It cuts on at one temperature and ramps up to the low speed, and then it ramps up to the high speed when it kicks on at a higher temperature. We ran a Mazir water pump so that we're not belt driving that. We don't have any power loss from the water. The car we did install vintage air conditioning. It's an under the dash unit, and we ran a Sandin SD7 compressor on it, which we custom made brackets and all to fit all this, because there's really nothing out there available for it. So it has air conditioning, but the air conditioning actually cuts out when we get to a certain throttle. So I think I have it set for 60% throttle. It cuts the compressor off. So when you're under full load, wide open throttle, the compressor shuts off. Plus, when you get above a certain RPM, you don't want that compressor spinning up that fast, so it shuts it off. Also, we do our own radiator caps, coolant overflow tank. These are all parts that we custom make in-house, as well as our crankcase ventilation system. So this is a vent that runs off the back of valve covers. We machine bungs into it, and that's where it all vents. So down in here, you can see our 1 7/8" tube headers. We've pretty much matched them, so they're all equal length header, long tube. We have a venturi at the bottom at the collector, which can speed up airflow and help evacuate cylinders. We ran a Willwood brake system all the way around on this. It's got 12-inch brakes, front and rear, and we made up this nice pedal assembly that runs a dual master cylinders for the brake and then also one for the clutch. Well, let's move around to the wheels on the car. Put these hood pins back in. We don't want the hood flying up. We will take a drive in a little bit. Originally, these cars had a steel wheel that was I think it was the Magnum 500 that was pretty popular amongst a lot of different automobile manufacturers, but they had painted theirs blue. We came up with the idea to take that same Magnum 500, since this is more of a drag car. We wanted a lighter weight wheel than the steel wheels, so we had the opportunity to do something different. We used a Sander Engineering hoop, which they use a lot on sprint cars, and he also makes them for drag cars. And we took that, and then we machined these centers, which mimic the Magnum 500. So and then we made a center cap that screws in. But we did not like the blue. We looked at it, but the owner and us decided that we would go with just black instead. And you can see here on the side, we have the Hurst badge. There's quite a bit of badging on here. For the front suspension on this car, we took a aftermarket kit that the owner brought to us, and we modified it quite a bit. We shortened up the control arms, we changed it out to a drop spindle. So we tucked the wheels in a little bit, and they gave us a lot of fender clearance, and brought the car down quite a bit in the front, because they sat up pretty high originally. I think they also had 14-inch wheels, which we've gone to a 15-inch, so we needed to drop the car a little bit. We're running M&H Race Masters up front and rear. We need something skinny in the front and sticky in the back. So Moving around to the back of the car, Ramblers were known because they had this black panel and they blacked out around the taillights. That was kind of unique. Of course, there's the Hurst badge again. They also had a gas cap here in the middle. So we eliminated that gas cap because we've upgraded to this fuel cell. It's an aluminum fuel cell that we got from Aeromotive, which we're also running a 340 Stealth fuel pump. And then we used one of our billet battery boxes with a Group 34 battery. And back here we have a shut off, so we shut off the ground side of the car. We do that on pretty much all of our builds. So in the back, we built a Ford 9-inch rear end. It's got the big housing from Curry. We put our own tubes and bearing ends on. We use a big bearing size. This thing has 35 spline axles with a strange aluminum center section and Dutchman axles in it. In the back, the M&H Racemasters are a 325/50/15. So this thing hooks up pretty good. We built our own 4-link for it, and with a panhard bar and a anti-roll bar. So this thing, it really hooks. Moving on to the inside of the car, this is probably my favorite part of the car. Something about a cockpit of a car just gives you that feel when you're driving it. And this is a car that just gives you that experience. It's just got that 1970s race car feel. But inside we took a lot of the original things like the dash pad and did our little touch on it. So we came up with this rectangular pattern in the door panels. We kind of incorporated in the dash and in the back, and it just screams race car. I saw this design in a lot of dragsters from the late 60s, so we kind of stuck with that. We did a few custom things. The dash has got a set of our old Anvil Speed Shop gauges. We like a kind of a retro look, but we wanted something more modern. Classic Instruments was nice enough to build us our own gauges. And we will have those for sale on our website as well in several different sizes. So the dash in this thing was plastic, and the gauges were set into it, kind of molded in, and they were really small. So by putting our gauges in it, it made them a lot bigger. You can see them. So we made this billet piece that fits the gauges, and then we kept a key ignition, and then we machined all the little knobs and all for it, so they all match and don't look like the billet piece out of the bag. Of course, it has a Hurst shifter. That's probably the best part of this car. It's just so much fun to drive. So the most exhilarating part of a car to me is sitting in that driver's seat. And what do you look at? You look at the gauges and the steering wheel. We chose a Momo California steering wheel. It just feels the most comfortable to me, and it works and performs well as looks the part. It fits this car perfectly. And then we put a set of Willwood pedals in it, but we had to extend the arms and make them longer. The geometry just didn't work out very well, and this actually gives us a little more leverage on the pedal. So I changed our ratio a little bit. So and then we fabricated a gas pedal, and it's all a mechanical mount. There's no cables. Car this quick, we prefer to be a solid. That way you could actually hook it with your foot and pull it back if it ever stuck. And then of course, we have a Vintage Air. Vintage Air's super cold, and like I said, it cuts out at like 60% throttle, so that when you got a hammer on, it shuts off and won't hurt anything. In the back, we put this nice roll bar in just to add protection to the driver. It gave us place to mount some seat belts. It's always important in our vehicles. We put seat belts in every car. Also back here, you can see that we've moved the tubs in quite a bit to house those big 325 tires. So it's been mini tubbed, and we kind of lost the back seat because of the 4-link, but that was worthwhile because it works extremely well now. And of course, the headrests in these cars were originally red with a blue stripe, white stripe, blue stripe, red stripe. But these headrests, these are Pro Car seats, and the headrests just weren't wide enough, and it just didn't look proper to me. So we came up with this really nice flaked vinyl and did the red, white, and blue, and it just it really pops in the car. All right, come on in, let's go for a ride. All right, let's go see what this thing will do. Yeah, it's funny, people today are so adamant about having power steering and power brakes and all that in their car and automatics. To me, they lose all their charm and the fun of actually driving. This car just makes you want to drive it. As soon as I get in the seat, I just get this thrill and this adrenaline rush. You've got the power, just the snap of the engine and the going through the gears. It's just an exhilarating experience. I feel like so many people today don't even get that. And I grew up on these cars, this type of car. A buddy of mine had a 68 Camaro back in the day, and I never will forget when I first got in it, and he took off in it, and I was sitting in the back seat, and the keys came out of the dash and hit me in the chest. And it was just that thrill of going fast, and the acceleration. There's nothing else like it to me. I guess that's why I like build cars like this. Yeah, this is a show winner, it's a showy car, but the mechanicals of this car are it's what makes it itself. Of course, we put a manual rack in it, it's manual steering, with the Willwood brakes. It's right, it just feels right when you drive it. It's such a joy to drive. It's not hard to turn. If everything's done right, it has the proper geometry. It's all set up right. I think we have 7 degrees of caster in this thing, so it automatically sets itself and goes straight. You know what the car is doing at every moment. You know when it's going to stop because you can feel the pressure in the brakes. You know how it's going to turn, how the bumps are. Yeah, this thing's fun. Yeah. Well, how'd you like the tour of our 1969 Rambler Scrambler? It's one of the most fun cars we've ever built or driven. This thing is just gobs of fun, and I hope you had fun too.